What's up, horror community? I'm Stock, and today's video is going to be a ranking video, and I gotta say this is my personal favorite type of video to make. It's a ranking of doing whatever topic I'm talking about, and today's topic is pretty interesting. I actually got recommended by one of my good friends, and I took up on it because it's a great idea, and that idea is ranking my top 5 personal highest Stephen King movies. Now, I understand that some of these movies aren't exactly the way that Stephen King wrote them. Some of these movies are actually really different than his versions of them, but I am talking about any movie, any story that he created. Even though the movie is a different take on it, I'm still obviously categorizing it as a Stephen King movie. So, with all that out of the way, let's talk about it. Here comes number 5. Number 5 for me is actually the original Carrie from 1976. I really like this movie. I've seen the iconic scenes of it since I was little when it was playing on TV, like the whole bloody ending and stuff, but within the last year, I recently rewatched the entire movie, and I really like this movie. I think what this movie does is different than a lot of things I've seen in horror, because what they do here is they make you feel a lot of sympathy for the main villain, for the main character. It's a very emotional movie. Even though Carrie's the one that does the big murders, even though she's the one that kills everyone, you're on her side and you feel very sympathetic towards her throughout the entire movie leading up to the ending. So that's really the main reason why that movie ranks at number 5 for me. It's because of that. It's because of that uniqueness. That's why I think about this movie from time to time, because in horror, a lot of the time you don't get like an emotional type of feel from a horror movie. A lot of the times you have different loves and appreciations to why you love that movie, but what this one does really well is that emotional aspect, especially like I just said, with the main villain character that does all the murders. The fact that you feel sympathy for her at the end of the movie, even though she is the killer in the end, very well done. Coming in at number 4 is The Mist from 2007. So this one's very interesting to me because I've seen it when it first came out in 2007, when I was way younger, when I was 9 years old, but I've seen it again in recent times. So all of these, it's funny because a lot of these Stephen King movies I've actually rewatched within the last year, so I'm very fresh-minded on it. But this one stands out to me a lot, and the reason why it's at number 4 is because it's a newer horror movie in terms of 2000s. Because a lot of the time when you think of horror, you're thinking of like the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, even some of the 60s like Psycho. You don't think of the 2000s as much, but to me, this one really stands up against a lot of other 2000s horror movies. Not only does it stand up against other 2000s horrors, but I also think it separates itself from that survival type movie that horror movies have. There's a bunch of movies in horror where it's like a survival group, and it's like a group of people, and like throughout the movie they're trying to overcome this world issue or whatever that they have to overcome. They kind of die one by one, that type of deal. To me, The Mist is like the best version I've seen of that concept. I really like all the characters in it. I thought the story was very simple yet effective. I liked everyone that kind of formed bonds in the grocery store. I like that it's in a grocery store because I work in a grocery store, and I kind of can relate to that feeling of like looking outside the front windows of a grocery store and just seeing all mist being trapped in there with people you work with and customers. I thought they did the whole, some people siding with one thing, other people siding here, like collisions, people kind of ripping each other apart. I think they did that really well. My only gripe with it is the monsters in it, is they kind of look a little, you could tell it's like early 2000s type of work on the movie, but there's other shots where they look better, but there's just certain shots where like there's like a tentacle grabs a guy, like, it doesn't look the best, but I can get way past that because there's a lot more positives about it. Talking about the biggest part of this movie that I love, the biggest thing that makes this my number 4 on the Stephen King list is that ending. The ending in this movie is one of, not even just in horror, but one of the most gut-punching endings I've ever seen. This ending, and I'm gonna briefly explain it, so if you haven't seen it, don't watch this part, skip over it. But basically, the main character is with his group of people. They are finally driving out of the grocery store. They're trying to drive away. They're driving, trying to see if there's any chance of any hope. For so long, they're just seeing, there's still mist everywhere. There's still like destruction everywhere. The main character, the guy, he sees his wife. She's dead at the house, so there goes that hope. And basically they lose that hope. They think there's nothing left to do. The main guy is with his son and I think 3 or 4 others. They ran out of options and they have a gun, and their only way out is to, I guess they wanted to end it. They want to get out of that suffering. So they decided that they're gonna all kill each other, shoot each other. So the main guy, but there's only a certain amount of bullets, so he shoots all of them, including his own son, shoots all of them and kills them. Can't shoot himself because there's no more bullets. He has like a visual where he's shooting the gun in his mouth and there's nothing in there. You can tell he's losing his mind. He's by himself. Literally, like I said, you killed your own son. Imagine how terrible that is. That's not even the messed up part. The messed up part is moments after that, this whole group of like tanks and stuff is coming towards him, and it's a bunch of people that are surviving through the mist, and the mist is kind of ending, and they're finding solution, and a bunch of people are driving past him. And if he waited a few more seconds, he would not have had to kill his son and the other people he was with. So you could just feel that lifetime regret that this main character has to live with now for the rest of his life. Like I said, easily one of the best endings you could ever see. There's the feeling it leaves in your stomach, the face you make, it just so unexpected. Such a crazy ending. It's literally like a Twilight Zone type of ending. So memorable, and that's my number 4. Ranking in at number 3 is the original It from 1990. So I just talked about this movie. Well, I talked about Pennywise from 1990 in my last video. So basically the reason why this is at my number 3 spot for Stephen King movies is because of, like what I talked about in my last video, it is the Pennywise in the movie, Tim Curry's performance. Everything he does throughout it is so memorable to me. Even though the entire movie itself isn't the strongest movie ever, just his performance, his memorable moments, what I look forward to throughout the movie every time he pops up, and just how much love I have for that character being one of my favorite horror characters ever. It's too hard for me to put this movie any lower than it at number 3 for now. I still highly prefer the old It over the newer It. As a movie, in ways I could definitely see actually, in ways of why the newer It is the better movie, both parts, than the miniseries back in 1990, but always for my personal, this is a very personal, I understand if you guys are like, whoa, why is this his number 3? But that's why, it's because of the Pennywise, it's because of Tim Curry, and just a lot of personal love there, so that's my number 3 on my list. Ranking in at number 2, this is a barn burner. I'm gonna slap on the barn burner on Misery. This is a fantastic movie, and like I just said, recently rewatched this in the last year, and this movie, guys, oh my god, it's just fantastic. It's fantastic on every single cylinder you could think of. The 2 top acting performances in this movie is so top tier, it's flawless. It's literally both of their performances are 10 out of 10. The way they bounce off each other throughout the entire movie is perfect, and I'm throwing perfect on that because it is. Something I massively credit this movie is its suspense and its tension. I felt so much tension the last time I watched this, especially scenes like where Annie leaves the house for a little bit, and Paul is literally he tries to sneak out of the room or something. He's creeping around the house trying to find a way out, trying to see where he's locked up at, trying to find more information, and he's in the wheelchair. And there's just parts where like she's like pulling in, like the camera shoots to like her driving home, and then it shows him like looking out, just so much tension. Like, is he gonna make it there in time? Is she gonna notice this? That tension. And I love tension so much. I love suspense so much because it makes me feel a lot emotionally. It makes me feel for that main good character in a movie that's going against the villain. I thought this character of Annie is one of the most crazy psycho characters I've ever seen in a movie. Like, it was so well played, and she really felt real. Like, I felt like a real psychopath. Just the way she was like super nice to him one second, then flips out on him the next, and just the way that goes throughout the entire movie of like nice, mean, nice, whack job. It's perfect. Gotta talk about the scene where Annie literally breaks his feet, like his ankles, feet area, and that, oh god, it's just so chilling to watch. Oh, just uncomfortable, but in a very good way. Yes, there are a lot of people that are big fans of this movie, but I feel like it's underrated. I feel like it's slept on and overlooked in terms of a lot of other horror, a lot of other icons. I think Annie deserves to be a larger horror icon. I know she is in a lot of people's eyes, but I think she deserves a bigger scale of that. Literally, my picture in the background up there, with all the horror icons, she's not even on it. And like, it's like, how are you not on it? That was one of the best horror performances I've ever seen. So Misery, goated movie. Also, you got James Caan in that movie, one of my favorite personal actors, and he did awesome in that. But Misery, very slept on movie. If you guys haven't seen that, go check it out, because like I said earlier, it's a barn burner. And now, coming down to it, ranking in at number 1 for Stephen King movies. And it's funny because he's not a big fan, Stephen King himself's not a big fan of this portrayal of his story, of this film. But it is the 1980 The Shining. Like I said, Stephen King himself, not a big fan of this movie. He says it's so off from what his original story was, what he was telling. But to me as a fan, to me as a viewer of the movie, I love The Shining so much. First of all, I love the slowness in this movie. I love the build-up from the beginning all the way up to the ending when Jack goes nuts. I thought every piece of that 2 hours and 15 to 20 minute movie, I thought every piece of that slow build was so worth it in the end. I felt the entire story came together very nicely throughout the whole movie, and it literally feels like a whole journey that you go through with that family. I love the unanswered questions, and that's something The Shining has went on about for all these years. If you read about it, is there's so much mystery to that movie. There's so many questions of like, I don't understand something. Oh, I don't get this. I don't get that. What's the answer to this? But that is so much of the meaning to this movie that's supposed to be a thing. And I feel like with all movies, I wouldn't like that. But with this one and with its bizarreness and what story it has, it works so well to me. And I enjoy that so much too. The acting performances by all 3 of the Torrances in that movie, I love. I even really like Shelley Duvall's performance as Wendy. Like, I think she was great. Like, I see so many people criticize her and say like she wasn't a good actress, like she was bad, she was a big letdown to the movie. Like, I don't agree with that at all. I don't know if you guys do, but I definitely don't. I think she played that innocent wife or literally battling against a psycho husband so well. And I felt that, like, I felt bad for her a lot near the ending when he goes nuts. And that also makes him look so much better because of how innocent she looked. A lot of people will disagree with me, but that's how I feel. And then I have to talk about Jack Nicholson's performance as Jack Torrance, one of my favorite horror icons ever. I just talked about Annie in the number 2 slot, but Jack Torrance for me, like, Annie's here, like, he's a whole different level for me. Taking nothing away from Annie, she's amazing. She's in both of their own ways, they're 10 out of 10s. This is just all about preference. And Jack Torrance is one of my favorites. He's just one of my favorites in horror. Like, I just remember so many little details about that character, what he did with it, from his look to his facial expressions to what he says verbally. Every action he makes throughout that entire movie, from even the beginning when he had the interview about going to the Overlook Hotel, he had that interview there, everything from there to the ending when he's the frozen ice cube when he dies is just perfect. Just everything Jack Nicholson did with that is just, god dang, that is so memorable. That's why it's so remembered 40 plus years later, because of what he did with that. Just everything about that movie I love. Like, I just spitball some stuff. I love the music in it. I love every type of instrumental sound effect they have throughout the whole movie. I love the Overlook Hotel. I think it's freaking awesome. Like, I think the outside of it is awesome, and I think the inside of it is so freaking cool. I love that it's winter time. The winter really adds to that, like, crap, I can't leave with this psychopath thing. I like how you have other characters in there like Dick, who comes back and tries to save the day, but he just gets axed at the end anyways. This movie, it just has memorable moments everywhere, and that to me is always the biggest thing about a movie for my personal preferences. And what that movie has is so many memorable moments, so many things that I always think about, so many things I love and love to talk about and love to just explore deeper. All 3 of the Torrances in terms of horror are all legends. They're all GOATs, but Jack Nicholson, Jack Torrance, to me, he's the only one that I'm gonna hit with the barn burner of a performance, because that performance was a barn burner. Well, guys, that's my top 5. That's my top 5 personal highest Stephen King movies. That could always change. That could always differ because I still have to see a lot. I still have to see a lot of Stephen King movies. Still have to rewatch some of them, like Pet Sematary I've seen before, but I gotta rewatch that. I remember that being awesome. But this was a really cool idea. This is a cool idea that, like I said, my friend gave to me, and I'm really happy I did it because I feel like it was a lot of fun to talk about. Ranking videos are the GOAT for me. They are my favorite thing to do. They are just the most fun for me to talk about and just talk about my personal lists and to see what other people's lists are like and see how much they differ or how much they agree with it. Also been loving doing the why videos a lot. My last 3 of them were why videos. If you guys haven't seen them, go check them out. But like I said, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time. Horror 31st.